Hey everybody, and welcome to World Cinema Breakdown, or in short, WCB. And thank you so much for joining me. My name is Utkarsh Raheja, as usual. And before I dive into today's video, which is about All of Us Are Dead, episode 2, great episode, great follow-up to the first initial episode. Before I dive into this, I just wanted to remind everybody that I'm on the road to 250 subscribers, and I'm so close. Please help me in getting there, and I know you will. And if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that red button to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications every time I drop a new video. But let's dive right into this second episode of All of Us Are Dead. This was such a fantastic follow-up, and there was so much more that happens with respect to the plot moving forward. We start off in the cafeteria where we left off in the first episode, in a cliffhanger, and I think we all knew Onjo wasn't going to die because she's one of the main characters. So Chang-sun and Onjo, they reunite with their friends in the classroom, and then Soo-hyuk, Namra, and Dae-soo, all three of those also reunite. And speaking of Dae-soo, he was obviously the comic relief of the show because every time, well, not every time, but a lot of the moments we see him talking to somebody or saying something, it's usually pretty funny, such as this.
너 뭐야? 너 왜 그래? 어떤 미친 새끼 계단에서 소화기 뿌려가지고 씨발.
But one thing that really annoyed me about that whole sequence was the people that were already in the classroom. When they have 5 new people join them, why would you not check each of those 5 individuals for bite marks on their legs, their arms, anywhere? Because that's something that I would personally definitely do if this were to happen in real life, because how would you know if somebody's already infected or bitten if you don't check? But anyways, right after that sequence, an iconic scene happens, and the reason I call it iconic is because of the reference in that scene, and this is the scene I'm talking about.
야, 부산행이다. 뭐래 병신. 아, 좀비 아니야 이거? 똑같잖아. 좀비가 왜 학교에 나와? 영화에 나와야지.
The reason this was such a cool scene is because of the fact that Chang-sun makes a reference to Train to Busan, which is an excellent movie, and I would highly recommend it. But the reason that's so cool is because this basically shows you that this show is set in our universe, not in some fictional universe. And also the fact that all the students are calling, the zombies actually zombies, right? Otherwise, oftentimes in shows or movies, they try to get creative with names like The Walking Dead or Walkers or Crawlers or, The Dead. Why not just call them zombies? Because that's what they are. And then the scene shifts, and we see what's happening in the hospital, because that's probably the starting point of where things go crazy in the city. And I was excited about that as well, because while this is a show centered around being in a school setting and school students, I really wanted to see how the outside would look like, right? Like the rest of the city, because that's probably going to be even more chaotic. We see that the students in the classroom are looking for a cell phone, and eventually when they do find one, they call the emergency service, but they say that they're being attacked by zombies. So as expected, the emergency person obviously does not believe them. So that's somewhere I think they went wrong.
네, 긴급신고 112입니다.
여보세요? 여기 효성고등학교인데요. 좀비가 나타났어요. 지금 다 좀비로 변해서 난리예요.
좀비로 가면 어떡해.
그럼 뭐라고 해?
좀비로 가면 믿냐?
확실히 좀비는 아니지만 좀비 비싼 건데요.
네, 효상고 좀비요.
신고자 이름이랑 전화번호 주시고요. 허위로 신고하면 벌금 부과되는 거 알고 있죠?
아, 장난 아니에요.
And as I mentioned before, that was probably the wrong move, because they're more likely to believe you if you say, oh, somebody has a fatal injury, or there's a school shooter, or something drastic like that, something that will make them want to come to the school and still be believable. So that's something I would have done personally. And speaking of the students in the classroom, the one particular student who definitely stood out for all the wrong reasons was the girl in pink. She kept having an issue with so many different characters, and this is one example.
내가 다시 전화해볼게. 밖에 떨어뜨렸어. 그걸 잃어버리면 어떡해.
야, 지금 신고가 급하래. 이게 급하지?
네가 뭔데 껴들어.
뭐?
네가 문 안 잡아서 이렇게 된 거잖아. 문만 잡고 있었어도 체육 안 들어?
This was one of many instances where she's just complaining at something or about something or just yelling at someone. And, when I was watching her, I did recognize her. So later on, after watching the episode, when I Googled her, I did find out that she was in Squid Games, and that's probably where I recognized her from. But it was pretty interesting because in Squid Games, she had a character that was so beloved and people were rooting for her. But in this, it was the exact opposite, and it's a character that you just get aggravated with, right? And elsewhere in the school, we see some more characters show up besides the ones, in the classroom, the team that we're rooting for, so to speak. We see the two people in the bathroom, and then they're then joined by the archery team. And when the archery team showed up, I was so excited when the girl, shot the arrow, because I've been waiting for cool weapons to show up. I don't want to see fire extinguishers or chairs and tables the entire show. I want to see some kind of cool weapons, axe, hammers, I don't know, some just cool stuff like that. And bow and arrow definitely is up there. And, as the show progresses, and then we finally see the teacher is also alive, and she makes her way to the announcement room, and she's kind of just telling everyone, please, babe, be careful, stay alive, blah, blah, blah. And then, the camera pans to our main team that we're rooting for, and you see many of the characters are crying.
미안해. 다치지 말고, 꼭 살아남아서 보자,
The reason this is relevant to talk about is because of the fact that oftentimes in shows or movies, whether they're about zombies or not, ones that are about certain conflicts, you often see that some of the main characters, they're so stern in the sense that they don't really show too much emotion in these situations. But in reality, no matter how strong you are or you're not, physically or mentally, you will have few moments of not necessarily breaking down, but just kind of just taking a moment to yourself and internalizing what is happening around you and just shedding a few tears, because that's completely normal. And we see many of our main characters do that. And that just kind of shows that they are human at the end of the day. And all of these guys are supposed to be teenagers. So no teenager is ready to cope with such trauma, in such short notice. And then speaking of trauma and coping with emotional issues, soon after, our very first emotional, big death happens.
빨리 놓으라고!
So I'm talking about the character Isak, who was Anjo's best friend. And this death was, the reason I'm saying this was one of the first big deaths is because you definitely feel the impact of her dying. It definitely touches you in the heart. And the reason that's really cool to point out is the fact that, this has only been not even 2 episodes, and there haven't been too many scenes of Isak, yet they did such a good job of making you feel emotional about her death. And, feel bad for Anjo, because, Anjo has already lost Soo-hyuk, because while we know as viewers know that Soo-hyuk is still alive, the entire group in the other classroom does not know that he's still alive. So in her mind, she's thinking she lost her crush, the one person she had hoped to become closer to, and now she lost her best friend. So you kind of feel bad for her, especially with the flashbacks. And I appreciated that the flashbacks were actual flashbacks and not just scenes that we'd already seen in episode 1 or 2, because a lot of times in movies and shows, flashbacks just end up being scenes we've already seen. What's the point of a scene that we've already seen if we're just going to see it twice? Now, the final thing I wanted to get into, drumroll, obviously it was the ending. And, obviously we see Chong-sun and what happens to him. Let's be honest, there is absolutely no way Chong-sun just died. I think we all know that. He's too important of a character to die this early, and the second point is we never actually physically see him fall or die or turn into a zombie, which means the likelihood of him actually becoming a zombie and, even dying is just absolutely zero in my opinion. And another thing is, maybe he just fell onto another ledge, maybe a lower ledge, lower floor, or maybe Soo-hyuk somehow came and saved him because he was present right there. Us as viewers, we know that. The rest of the crew doesn't. But let's be honest, in my opinion, there's zero chance he died. I know it's a cliffhanger, and I'm still very excited to see in the beginning of episode 3 how they kind of show him being alive. So it's a great way to end the second episode, but I'm convinced there's no way he died. But I'm excited to find out in episode 3, so please tune into that next video that I'll be putting out very soon, because I can't wait to just keep on watching these episodes really quickly because they've been so addicting, honestly. But as for now, thank you so much for joining me, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Peace.